Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the next part of my tier list. This time we have horror games, and the reason I titled it this way was because I gave it a normal title at first. It was just every horror game I've played. That was taken, so it just kind of made me mad, and I just spammed some numbers with it. Oh yeah, and it doesn't say in the title, but this is actually horror and survival games. There's only like 2 survival games, so really it's not that important, but I just had to add that as a category. Also, as you can see, I pretty much am just making a Resident Evil tier list because that's the majority of the games on the list. But there are some other horror games I played I want to talk about, so it's still worth talking about. You can also see that since most of these games are Resident Evil, I couldn't think of very many like quotes from the other series on the list or anything, so I just went with names from the Resident Evil series. We got Leon S. Kennedy for S rank, Albert Wesker, because he starts with an A, Brad Vickers, Chris Redfield, and Ashley. So all of the other ones, they have the letter that their tier is in the name. Ashley is only here because she's simply the worst character ever.
Leon! Leon! Help me, Leon! Leon!
Look, you're a real nice girl and I like you a lot, but for right now, shut up.
Let's go ahead and get started with Luigi's Mansion. So this is definitely the most child-friendly horror game on this list. I don't even know if people consider this a horror game. I just thought it I would like to talk about it with these other games because it's definitely horror inspired. Essentially what this game is baby's first Resident Evil. It's the exact same concept as like the old school Resident Evil games, where you're kind of in like a big mansion area and you slowly have to figure out how to unlock all the doors and, you know, find secrets, solve puzzles, all that kind of stuff. But it's a lot of fun. I love Luigi's Mansion 1. This is the only one I played. I haven't played much of the third one yet. I have it. I need to get to it. But the first one just had such a great atmosphere. It was really scary to play this as a kid, even though I'm sure it's not that scary of a game. I never fully finished this game because I was just too intimidated by it as a kid. I played a lot of it though. It was still like fun enough to where I would persevere through my fear, even though, you know, it was hard to play it sometimes. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that in A tier because I really like Luigi's Mansion, but I haven't completed it, so I don't really know if I know enough about it to put it in S tier. So I think I'm just gonna put it in A tier because it's a really good game and it definitely belongs at least there. Maybe even S tier, I don't know. I just can't put it up there, I'm not familiar enough with it. Okay, so next up we have Resident Evil 2, and this is the remake, by the way. I never played the original, but the remake is in my top 3 Resident Evil games. This one is so good. It's the first game you play as Leon, which is my personal favorite Resident Evil protagonist. He's just got such a nice attitude. He's usually voiced by Matt Mercer, not in this game, but usually, which I love as well. To me, I think that the police station is the most memorable Resident Evil location. In the second one, I loved the layout of that place. I mean, it's so memorable. It only really took one playthrough for me to start to learn the ins and outs of that place and like where certain items are and stuff. But the biggest thing to me that sets this game apart is the way Mr. X works in this game. So I've heard in the original, Mr. X isn't in it until you're playing your second playthrough. So just as a way to make the game a little more challenging, he shows up sometimes. But in this game, he pursues you through basically the entire game, even in your first playthrough. And I think that's just a nice way of making it to where old fans of the original will have something new to look forward to, something to surprise them, and it makes sure that newcomers have plenty to worry about during their first playthrough. The only problem I can really think of, and this goes for a lot of Resident Evil games, is that they always just end in a lab. That's a pretty big trope at this point with these games, where after you get past the big main location, or towards the end of the game, you'll just end up in a lab, and it just seems to end up that way in most of the games, so it's kind of hard to ignore it after a little bit. But no, I mean, as far as like Resident Evil goes, everything you'd like in this series is like perfect here to me. This one easily goes in S tier. I think it's one of the best Resident Evil games. It's just one of my favorite games ever, period, honestly.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Alright, Resident Evil 7. This is the first Resident Evil game I ever played. I played it with a couple of my friends when it came out. We stayed up the whole night playing it in VR. And we beat it that night, and it was one of the funnest times I've ever had playing any game, honestly. This was the game that went back to kind of the roots of the series, like how it was supposed to be. You know, there was 6, which spoiler alert, not a lot of people enjoyed. It was way too just action heavy, but of course we'll talk about that later. But no, 7 went back to the roots and had the style of like house where you unlock the area slowly, like I was talking about earlier. And it's just so much fun. The Baker Mansion is really memorable. It's got great villains like Jack Baker. I always like to see him again, no matter how many times I play the game. And of course, making this game VR made it all the more scary. This game was in first person, unlike any of the other Resident Evil games. Actually, this is the first one. They decided to go first person, which just went well with the VR concept and all that. It also had a really good hard mode. Like when you would play Madhouse, which is the hard difficulty, it would rearrange a lot of the items. It would just change the way certain enemies behave, where they spawn. And it gave you a really good way to play the game again. So there's a lot of replay value here. Stuff to unlock, to use for future playthroughs. You can do a speed run. You get a circular saw. It makes the game way easier from then on. Just all kinds of stuff to give you reasons to come back and play it again. I also think this game belongs in S tier. This is one of the greatest horror games I've ever played. It's one of my favorites, if not my favorite. So yeah.
This is really beautiful. All this power will be mine.
For the sake of an awful creature?
Okay, Layers of Fear. I played this a long time ago. This was like the second horror game I ever played all the way through. I definitely enjoyed it though. It's kind of hard. It's been a long time since I've done it, and that's why I debated even putting it on this. But I do remember enough about it. There's no real combat in this game. It's more just the exploration. It had a unique concept though, where when you would like look around, a lot of your environments would change, like to basically simulate insanity. So you would like open a door and it would be like not the room you were in a second ago. It was really trippy. Like they would constantly be rearranging things to confuse you. And it was a lot of fun though. I remember the puzzles being good. The atmosphere was really scary. The story was pretty interesting from what I remember. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and put this in B tier. Because I like a lot about it from what I remember, but it's never like a game I come back and play again. So I can't really put it up there with these other games. Resident Evil 5, most people will agree, is when the series started really going downhill. It's not nearly as bad as 6, but it's not great. This game really is more of an action-heavy Call of Duty type campaign than anything. Which, if you are a fan of the series, you know it's not really about that. It's about struggling to have enough ammo to survive, all that kind of stuff. You'll never experience that in this game though. The one saving grace though is they added co-op for this game, which was the first time they had that. So me and my friends still had a really good time playing this game. After 7, I forgot to mention it, but after 7 we went through and played all the Resident Evil games, and that's kind of how I got into the series, was through 7. But anyways, yeah, on 5 we got to play through that together, so that of course made it fun. It doesn't really have to be that great of a game to be fun if you're playing with a friend. But you know, it was still good enough for us to enjoy it, so I think that will... I think that's a C tier. It's a good game. It's just not great, and it's fun to play with a friend, so it's still worth checking out, I would say. Okay, Ark Survival Evolved. This is going to be hard to put on a tier list, because I'm going to have to separate my enjoyment for what this game actually is. So Ark is just a survival game where you can kind of join servers and you can play with your friends. You can tame dinosaurs, build bases. You know, I didn't play PvP, but I just played it with a group of my friends on a server. And it's a lot of fun. It's a really tough survival game. The odds seem to always be against you, and you have to really know how the game works to be able to get any sort of strong creatures and survive. The problem with this game though is it's just really not polished. Like there's an insane amount of things that go wrong in this game. There's like glitches that really do interrupt the experience a lot. And it sucks because I've had some great memories with this game, but I also have so many memories of getting so screwed over with this game. Like, oh god, it makes me sick to even think about playing this game again sometimes because of just all the rage that's been caused by it. Because of that, I'm gonna have to put it in B tier. I really enjoy this game a lot, but it definitely could be so much better, and I hope Ark 2 is. Alright, so Outlast. This is the first horror game I ever sat through all the way. I'd been way too scared of them before that point, because I was about 13, 14 when I played this game. It was a ton of fun though. At the time it was a new concept. You don't have any weapons. You can't fight back at all. You just have a camera with night vision, and you're supposed to explore this asylum. This is pretty much the most scared I've ever been playing a game. Not because it's not really, I'm not saying it's scarier than Resident Evil, but the fact that you can't fight back and you're constantly having to run from something and hide from something is a lot more terrifying than when you're able to actually do something about it. Yeah, I don't have any fun playing this game. I like this game a lot, but it is not fun to play. I always play it with a friend because me and him like to switch off and just watch each other get scared, but playing it yourself is pretty miserable to me, but in the best of ways. So I think this belongs in A tier. I like Outlast a lot, and I'm tempted to put it down to B tier just because of Chris Walker, but I'll just leave it where it is. Also, I just realized I didn't put Outlast 2 on this list. I have played Outlast 2. I think Outlast 2 is just as good, if not better, than the first one. It's definitely a lot scarier because of the the levels are a lot more open, so there's way more places that you could go that aren't the right way. So there's a lot more pressure there. But I think I would put it on A tier as well. I think it's just about as good as Outlast 1, maybe a little better though. Okay, it wasn't actually that hard to add the pictures, so there we go. But yeah, like I said, pretty much just as good as the first one, maybe a little bit better. Alright, Bloodborne was my first From Software game. For those of you who don't know, they created Dark Souls, Sekiro, like that type of stuff. Bloodborne was a lot of fun though. It's the most horror themed Souls game. It's just like a horror themed Souls game basically, but it's a lot more modern than Dark Souls. So because of that, I can't really go back and play Dark Souls as well now because this game was just a lot more refined since then. But this game was a ton of fun. I never understood how people played these games. I never understood why they liked just the constant torment that these super challenging games provide. But I kind of get it with this game. I enjoyed Bloodborne a lot. Like, the boss fights were challenging enough to where they felt so good to defeat, but they were also not too challenging usually to where I wanted to give up. So I really liked the balance they had in this game. They also had a good diversity with like the sizes. Like, some of them were giant monsters, some of them were just human sized. And I tended to prefer the human sized fights. I just like the way those feel better, and I'm just better at them. The soundtrack's great, the environments are great, the enemy designs are awesome. They're so weird, they just get weirder and weirder as you go through the game. See, I really like Bloodborne a lot, and I think fans would have me lynched if I didn't put it in S tier. Yeah, I really liked Bloodborne. I think it definitely belongs in S tier because a lot of people say it's the best Souls game, and just from playing it, I could tell, even without having played the other ones, that it's definitely one of the better ones for sure.
This is my last wish. Please give this photo to my family. My God!
Okay, Resident Evil 3. This is the first Resident Evil game on here that I'm not too fond of. I mean, 5, like I said, is not that great, but 3 just wasn't that fun at all to me. 3 had the same kind of a problem 5 and 6 do, where it's more action oriented than like survival horror. Because the nemesis in this game was built up to be, I was like so excited. I thought he was going to be like an even cooler version of Mr. X. But he was really lame in comparison. Like, he had potential. He certainly could have been better or as good. But he just, all of his times he showed up were scripted pretty much. And he never felt like he had as much of a presence as Mr. X. He wasn't constantly pursuing you or anything. It was just in certain moments that the game predetermined he would be. Haven't played the original, so I don't know if that's just a problem with the remake or not. But I really didn't enjoy much of Resident Evil 3. I don't think it's D tier. I just don't really enjoy it that much. I think it's C tier. I enjoyed 5 more, but I know that's probably just because of the co-op aspect, so I can't really put it lower than that. Little Nightmares 2, I just played this on the channel recently. This was a lot of fun. I didn't play the first one, so I just kind of skipped to this one. But I still feel like it did a good job of bringing me into the world and making me care about the main character and stuff. The art style in this game is by far what's most special about it. I mean, it looks like nothing else you've ever really seen before. It's got such a unique look and just disgusting design for its creatures. And they're always really, it's always really cool to see the next enemy that you're gonna have to run away from, just to see what it looks like. The tension is on point. There were so many points where I was just so terrified playing this. I was on the edge of my seat like constantly whenever there was enemies around. They really know how to balance it in this game though, because while there is a lot of tension, it's not overwhelming. There's like a good enough amount of downtime where you're doing puzzles and stuff. Because I've watched the first one since I played this one, and it looked like it was just way too hectic. Like, it looked like there was constantly something to worry about. There wasn't enough breaks in it to, you know, keep you sane. So I'm glad I didn't play that one, honestly. But no, I think for what it is, I don't know really what they could have done better. I think it was, you know, pretty much perfect for what it was. So I'm going to put that in S tier also.
It's a monster! Richard! No!
Richard!
Rebecca! Be careful!
A lot of S tier horror games. I've been pretty fortunate with what I played, it looks like. Phasmaphobia. This is probably the most modern thing on this list. I'm sure everyone's familiar with it because it was very popular just a couple months ago. Basically, you hunt ghosts. You look for clues in houses or schools or whatever location you go to, and you look for clues to figure out what type of ghost it is you're hunting, and you try not to die. And you can play with friends, which is definitely the best way to play it. I don't really even know if it'd be worth playing otherwise. Because it's so fun being able to just talk to your friends, and it has proximity chat, so when they're far away, it sounds like they really are far away, and when they're close, you can hear them better. But I had a lot of fun with this game, though. I haven't played it too much, because it kind of died off, but it was really fun while I played it. I think it'll be fine in B tier. You know, it's not as big of a game as like these, but it's definitely a good time. I would recommend playing it. Alright, Resident Evil 4. I don't really need to waste much time with this one. This is already, everyone knows this is considered like one of the best games of all time. This was my introduction to Leon Kennedy, and like I said, I love him as a protagonist. He was voiced by Matt Mercer in this one, actually, so he's got that real edgy, you know, attitude with him. And he's got his ridiculously acrobatic moves he uses against the zombies, and I really like the balance they found in this game. It's like, it's campy, but it's not too campy to where you can still take it fairly seriously. But it does get pretty wacky. Like, there's some ridiculous villains in this game. I love it though. I love everything about it. I love the style, the tone, the gameplay, the inventory is my favorite. The what do you buy in guy, he's awesome. He's iconic. I think that is definitely S tier. I don't know why I said think. I know it's S tier. Okay.
I can treat you, except for your major injury. Would you like me to?
Yes, please do something for me, temporarily.
6 is similar to Resident Evil 4 in the sense that I don't need to waste any time with it. It goes in Ashley. It's really hard for me to even find anything to say about this game because it's just so forgettable. I played through the campaign once with my friend because it brought over the co-op from Resident Evil 5. But even the co-op wasn't enough to save this one because we can't remember basically a single thing that happened in that campaign through the entire thing. I remember maybe one moment from it. But other than that, it was just so generic, so action heavy. You're just going from moment to moment, not really thinking about or caring about what's happening. This game even has 3 different campaigns. You can play as Chris, Leon, or some sort of other character, I don't remember. But we didn't bother with anything past Leon's campaign since it was so not fun to play. Which is crazy because we love Resident Evil. We always jump at the opportunity to play another one. But even this one wasn't fun enough for us to come back to. I definitely understood why everyone hates this game whenever I played it because it just wasn't very fun at all. Not much else to say about it really. It's just an easy D tier game. There's nothing really good about it, honestly. Okay, this is the first Resident Evil game. I played Remake, by the way, the remake of it. This game was a lot of fun too. I don't think I enjoyed this game as much as most people do though, because it's just so difficult. Not really in the gameplay necessarily, but the puzzles are super hard to figure out. I can't even count the amount of times we had to look at Google to solve this game, and we usually don't have to do that for the other games, so I know it's harder than those. The thing that makes it so much more rough in this game is that every door has its own loading screen. So going through a door pulls up a loading screen of you walking through the door. So I'm not as willing to go around and look for what I'm supposed to do, since I have to go sit through those every time I go to a different room. So that makes me quicker to give in and just look it up. I know it was a limitation of the time, but it still brings it down a bit for me. It's still a really good game, though. It's still a really good Resident Evil game, and I still think it belongs in A tier. I don't think I could put it anywhere else. I mean, it started it all. It still holds up pretty well, besides the loading screen thing. And yeah, I think it easily belongs in A tier, or if not S tier. Some people would argue S tier. But this is factoring in my personal enjoyment, so I think A is pretty good for it. Last off, we have The Forest. This is the only other survival game besides Ark on this list. This game's definitely a lot smaller than Ark. It's a lot more simple. There's just not as much to it. Like, this game has a defined ending, which Ark kind of does too, but it takes way longer to get there. This game, it's really just like, you can speedrun this game if you wanted to in like 30 minutes or less. Like, you can beat this game really quickly. I've fully played through this game with a friend, which I would recommend doing. I wouldn't want to play this game by myself, but I did enjoy the experience we had playing it. There's all kinds of cannibal villains to deal with. There's no like dinosaurs or anything in this one. It's just cannibals and like some other small animals and stuff. But the cannibals are all you have to worry about, and they have variations. Like, there's the big fat one who will tackle you. There's big dudes with like 4 arms that are just stronger. They'll kill you quicker. And you got to build a base and that it's built to fend off these sort of things and keep you safe at night. The only thing to me is I just don't think this game lasts as long as something like Ark. Like, once you've figured out how to fight and how to survive the cannibals and stuff, it really doesn't get much harder at a certain point. Like, it gets to a point where the game's pretty much just really easy because you've learned how to fully defend yourself from these guys. Yeah, it just gets to a point where it's like, okay, what do I do now? And it gets there faster than I would have liked. Because, of course, every game's going to get there at some point, but this one just gets there a little early. I think I'll have to put it with Ark, because while I don't enjoy it as much as Ark, it's a lot more polished. It's more put together because it's a smaller game, so it's easier to do that. But yeah, since I factor that into Ark, I also have to factor it in with this. Okay, well, that's all of the horror and survival games. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any disagreements if you'd like. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this one, and I hope to see you next week with the co-op and casual category of this tier list. So yeah, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.